A new season, a new schedule for 60 plus racing adventures. The iRacing League for drivers 60 years of age or over. Bringing you the first round live here on RaceSpotTV. David Haynes with Michael Johnson, Ramiro Augustin Cisneros in production for us. We've got the Super Formula lights back again, and the season kicks off here at Okayama, taking a look at the racetrack. Once hosted the Pacific Grand Prix in 1994 and 1995. It is a rather technical, rather compact layout, but it's all about the run out of Atwood Curve onto the long back straight. Things get tight and twisty through the middle part of the lap, and then it brings them out onto the start-finish straight once again. This is a look at the calendar kicking off here at Okayama before they go to Red Bull Ring, Silverstone, the Grand Prix circuit, Algarve, Portimao, Fuji, RaceSpotTV live coverage again for Road America at round 6, and then Manicure, Road Atlanta, Mugello, Historic Barcelona, Mount Panorama Bathurst, and a season finale September 3rd will be live here on RaceSpotTV at Circuit Monza. So a really sort of GP Grand Prix focused style of calendar for the Super Formula Light car, which is a junior open wheeler. Let's see if I can bring in Michael Johnson alongside me.
Indeed you can. I am here and I love this track. It is so much fun to race. This was built as kind of a country club track back in the day, and these Super Formula lights just eat it up. You can go into this first corner with barely a brush of the brake. You still drop it down, and then again going into the second corner, you just sort of kind of lift, at least when your tires are warm, and it is just a blast going down through this little, essentially a straight. I know there are a couple of curves in there, but seriously, it's really just a straight. This turn up the hill, though, this really sets up your first opportunity for some good passing areas, good passing attempts going down into that super tight hairpin. Have you driven this much before?
Yes, a fair bit, particularly back in the days when it was one of only a few pieces of iRacing free content. Now there's far more, but this is a circuit, Okayama, that used to get a lot of usage like that. For Super Formula Lights here in 60 Plus Racing Adventures, John Payne is the reigning champion. But heading into spring and summer in the Northern Hemisphere is actually a time that quite a few drivers step away or can't make every single week. We'll see if a new champion can emerge this season. There's certainly some good drivers on the grid and some extras joining us. The format for tonight as well being 2 races, just with a minute left in practice before they go into qualifying for race 1, and then there'll be qualifying and race 2 as well. So plenty for the drivers to sink their teeth into tonight.
Yeah, John's still sitting on top of the tower here. He has so far got the best time, but not by a huge margin. Looks like Catalano's right behind him, not that far back. So I think we're going to see some pretty interesting racing from these folks today, especially in the pointy end. And looking at the times through that kind of mid-pack, I think we're going to see some interesting racing there too. Really looking forward to seeing it as we watch somebody make some pirouettes. Also quite possible here on this track. That grass definitely is vicious. If you get a little bit too far out into it, it'll turn it into a little dance sport competition instead of a race.
Yes, he trimmed some Japanese grass, but didn't end up with a bonsai there. The session will move from practice to qualifying for Bob Cohen and indeed for everyone, and this will set the grid for the very, very first race of a new season for 60 Plus Racing Adventures. 10 minutes, the fans are so keen. This is one of the circuits that's just received a very, very significant update from iRacing. It will look quite different from what you may have been used to around the circuit. The curbs definitely look very different in places.
And it feels better too. I think before the whole track just had kind of an odd, almost disjointed feel, but having driven it quite a bit lately, especially through the past week or so, it definitely has a little bit more spirit, a little more life to it, and I feel like it just feels a little more realistic. I think these drivers are going to be able to pull out some pretty amazing times today, just given the new feel of the track.
So an outlap right now for all the drivers before they get into their qualifying laps. Taking a look at Jeff Browning on the back straight here, fastest part of the racetrack, certainly where you expect the slipstreaming of the Super Formula Light to come into play. Good to see that even in the rework of this track, they haven't moved that massive pile of tyres alongside the back straight there. We saw that the track temperature was relatively warm, but it's still looking like a lot of the drivers struggling to build tyre temperature, at least for this initial part. This is John Payne weaving around all sorts. It looked very out of shape, and then down the little straight, he's definitely weaving to try to build some tyre temperature, but as he tried to negotiate the corners before, just looked like he wasn't getting much stability.
Yeah, with the track temperatures right around 40 Celsius, 104 Fahrenheit, it's pretty easy to get the temperature in these tires. And honestly, in my experience, trying to scrub back and forth like that doesn't really do much of anything. Feels cool, looks neat, but you really don't get a whole lot, especially in this car, which I've actually started driving a whole lot lately. You just don't get a lot of temperature more than maybe surface temperature in those tires. You really need to get that core temperature in there, and I think most people find that heavy acceleration, heavy braking, and maybe even a little brake drag from time to time will get you that core temperature you're looking for, which after that out lap, you get that first lap in, boy, is it a burner. And by the second lap, I think you're probably doing about as fast as you possibly can.
So keeping an eye on the first flying laps coming in, John Payne reaches the braking zone, goes into the banked right-hand hairpin where you don't track all the way out because then you need to open up the descending left-handers that follow into the midfield. These are going to be pretty quick laps around this relatively short Okayama circuit for these Super Formula lights that really can eat up the corners, even if they don't have the horsepower of an F1 car or something like that. And Roberto Catalano, bottom of screen, just a little bit further back on his program as far as getting the first lap completed. First time comes in from Greg Garris, a 1:21. Douglas Beasley, a 1:23. And then Jerry Kerr. So we're about to see John Payne's time. Timing line's a long way down the pit straight, and as John Payne crosses it, he's 1:21.060. Nearly took him to the top, and now he's run off track beginning his second lap. That might be qualifying almost done for John Payne, while Roberto Catalano is on top.
Yeah, Catalano was able to pull in 20.667. Really good time there. That's going to make it an interesting start, I think, for these guys. We'll see if John can pull this out, but I don't think he's going to be able to. I think Roberto has probably got this in the bag. Meanwhile, looking a little bit farther back into the field, though, it's going to be a really tight race. I see 21.6, 21.6, 21.7. We got a nice little probably rush for third place in this little group back here with the draftability of this car and just the fun of throwing it into a corner and watching it stick. This is going to be some exciting racing. I think P1 and P2, unless something goes horribly wrong, these guys are pretty well set, but from 3 on back to probably 7th or 8th, I think that's going to be a battle for the last step on the podium.
Second lap's coming in, and Greg Garris's improvement jumps him up to second for the moment. Jack Turner improves into 7th. Still a lot more lap times to come. John Payne has pitted, so his qualifying looks done. Ragnar Wisloff by 5 thousandths just pops ahead of Roberto Catalano, who then pips him right back. So Catalano and Wisloff up top looking like they're going to be the front row. Gerhardus Jorgensen and Mike McCormick slot into 4th and 5th. So as those second laps come in, some much improved times. Bob Cohen to 9th, Barry Hills to 11th. And John Payne might have some race pace, but he's made a little mistake in qualifying. That means he's going to start no better than 7th.
Yeah, that's going to be a tall order for him, but I think with the talent we've seen out of him in the past, coming through the field and the pace he showed in practice, I think we're going to see some really good passing, some really good defending. I would keep my eye right here on John Payne for the majority of the race. I think that's where we're going to see a lot of movement and a lot of just fantastic racing from these guys. Meanwhile, Russ Addy trying to put his lap down. Not too bad, about a second off that pace, currently in P8. Last time around was able to pull a 1:21.4, but don't know if he's going to be able to quite hit that this time as he comes up to the line. 19, 20, 21, and 22, 1.5. So a little bit slower on that lap. Not a bad one. Shows a good bit of consistency there, though. Meanwhile, on to Barry Hills, who's back in P11.
Somewhat obscured by the grandstand. Trust us, he's there. Barry Hills crosses the line. He moves up into 8th. So just a tiny bit of change happening at the end of this qualifying session. 10 minutes, but only 2 laps. And with the lap times that we're seeing at about 1:20, they did get around, complete 2 flying laps very quickly for most of the field. 16 drivers with qualifying times, 2 drivers without him, Franz Josef Sturm and Bill Smitham. So there are 2 cars that haven't set any time in this qualifying.
that might be somebody just knowing they need to sit back, that maybe they're not confident with the track, or just something with the combination. Or, sometimes I've come into races where I just felt supremely confident, and I went off and grabbed a sandwich while everybody else was qualifying. Then I had a nice full belly, come back, and then hopefully able to rock the race and fight my way up to the front and just have a blast.
Neither of those two drivers, Sturm or Smitham, out on track. The only drivers left just waiting for the clock to click and tick down are Barry Hills and Russ Addy. Both of them, having completed their 2 laps, won't be moving on the timing column. Watching Barry Hills just continue to try to gain some more track knowledge, feel out the conditions. Still remains a 40°C track, so relatively hot in that. Not expecting any rain, not seeing much wind, not even seeing too much humidity.
Yeah, the humidity shouldn't be too much of a factor here. Lack of rain, I think everyone's a little thrilled to see that we're not going to have too much of a chance of rain here. This track in the dry is challenging enough. Adding rain to that, with as close as that grass is to that white line, as you can see right there, Russ Addy running down into the corner, using every last millimeter, including a little bit of the dirt going through that final corner. I think he could have taken a little more there. You can get out onto that green. The car might bounce around a little bit, but it doesn't feel too bad. There he goes, pulling a 21.3. So not a bad time. Unfortunately, I don't know if that's going to count for him. Anyway, here we are off to the starting grid.
So Roberto Catalano is going to be on pole for the first race of the season. Ragnar Wisloff has qualified in second, Todd Scholl in third, and Gerhardus Jorrison in fourth place. And Mike McCormick is in fifth, with Greg Garris in sixth. For John Payne, we saw the mistake he made. Turn 1 of his second lap, he went off track, invalidated that lap time, and it was the second lap that's the golden opportunity to continue improving as you continue to build tyre temperature, and he unfortunately wasn't able to complete it. So the reigning champion starts out as 7th, alongside Russ Addy in 8th, Jack Turner 9th, Jeff Browning 10th, Peter Holstrom in 11th, with Bob Cohen in 12th, Douglas Beasley 13th, Jerry Kerr 14th, and JC Hay 15th. That slightly disagrees with what I'm seeing elsewhere, but definitely Franz Josef Sturm and Bill Smitham with no qualifying times. Where did mine start disagreeing? Is there a tie somewhere?
Yeah, looking down the list now, I'm trying to see if there is a tie. I don't see some very close times, but I don't see anybody who has a tie. So, yeah, it looks like we are pretty well set with just those two not setting a time. Although Sturm did set a time in practice of a 21.6.
Because I've got 16
Bill Smitham
drivers.
didn't hit one.
16 drivers with qualifying times, and that graphic only showed 15, yeah? Someone was missing?
I think someone was missing. So we go Catalano, Wisloff, Scholl, Jorrison, McCormick, Garris, Payne, Hills, Addy, Cohen, Turner, Hallstrom, Browning, Beasley, Kerr, and Hay would be the 16, with Sturm and Smitham not setting times.
So at the moment, I'm seeing everyone, not seeing Jack Turner on the starting grid, not seeing Bill Smitham on the starting grid. Franz Josef Sturm without a time tacks on to the back. The formation lap begins with Roberto Catalano and Ragnar Wisloff on the front row, but Jack Turner absent and Bill Smitham also absent.
This is going to be a time these drivers really need to take care of their tires. They need to make sure they're going to have the the heat in the tires to make it through that first corner, because if you don't have enough temperature in those, if you don't have the core of the tire warmed up sufficiently, turn one is pretty much a straight. You're just going to go straight through into the wall because you turn the wheel and nothing happens.
Track temperatures moved up to 41 degrees Celsius, 21 laps ahead of us for race 1 of 2, this opening round of a new season of 60-plus racing adventures. Super Formula League, I always say, more people turn 60 every season. I'm not seeing particularly many newcomers this time around, many returning and familiar faces, and they're about to get underway. Pace car takes a weird pit entry here. It misses the first pit entry and then dives for a late entry. Roberto Catalano, Ragnar Wisloff, front row, waiting on the green flag to get us underway, and I think Roberto Catalano's put his foot down pretty early, bringing 60-plus racing adventures towards turn 1 at Okayama. Wisloff dropping in behind him. John Payne already gaining some position, certainly one to watch in this opening race, as from his poor qualifying, he'll look to scythe his way through this field.
Yeah, indeed. Little bit of dirt there from our leader, Roberto. He's trying to hold on to this first position. Good passing opportunity here, coming down into this corner, covers that inside, gets the power down, pushes the car all the way to the outside, gets a little wiggly, and we have a new leader. Wisloff moves into first place, Catalano falling down into third.
So uphill and turning and accelerating. Roberto Catalano asking for too much all at once on cold tyres. Wisloff and Scholl go through into first and second. Gahardis Jorison also just now getting ahead of him into third. Descending down through the left-hander. Catalano's going to try to strike back and into a podium spot, and he will, putting Jorison back into fourth. John Payne makes another move up into fifth. You see him just behind our leading group, heading up the hill, 2 linked hairpins, and this is going to be the error from Catalano right here.
Yeah, meanwhile, look like Ragnar has had his own incident turning around, but let's look here at Catalano as he goes up. Whoop, missed that. So Ragnar looks like he might have got a little help getting turned around there. So bummer for him. I'm thinking he should be able to work his way back through the field. Meanwhile, Scholl is up in first place. Catalano back to second. Jorison in third. And John Payne, heavy mover here, up 3 positions into P4.
Kicks up some dust coming out of turn 2. Todd Scholl leads us into Atwood Curve at the far end of the racetrack. Jack Turner and Douglas Beasley and Jerry Kerr taking pit stops for their damage. This is Wisloff. It's in that traction again on the cold tyres. I don't think he got too much of the curb, but I think he got too much of the throttle while he still had a lot of steering lock loaded in. You kind of, I don't know, maybe got to drive them like a stock car a little bit when the tyres are cold and not try to ask 2 things at once of the tyres. The amount of gravel that's been dragged onto the track right there. Todd Scholl's one of the first drivers to kick it up. A second clear from Catalano, who's working his way back through the field, and behind Gahardis Jorison, who qualified very well. Certainly a little bit of a train right here.
Yeah, and this train is not too bad of a thing. We've got quite a bit of racing left to go here. They're not going to want to make too many serious moves just yet. Although getting that far out there, wow, that was quite a bit of gravel that that car pulled up. That's not the way to take that final corner. But yeah, I wanted to go back to the issue with Ragnar when he was going through that corner. Sometimes in this car, and this was the weird thing that I found out when I first started driving it, is when that rear end wants to snap, like you've put on too much throttle, it snaps very quickly, and it almost feels like somebody might have tagged you, but you go back and watch the replay and there was nobody near you. So that may have been what happened to him right there, thinking he had gotten a little bit of contact, but clearly from the replay, nobody was close enough to him. He was driving fast enough. Meanwhile, we got a couple of meatball flags out there. Looks like Sturm has a meatball flag, and yeah, Wisloff has a meatball as well.
Oh, so for Jerry Kerr, that's absolutely the dirt and the gravel, and then as he's come back around, might have collected Jeff Browning. Oh no, Jeff Browning separately with Franz Josef Sturm, I think, there. Oh, and Jack Turner. Okay, maybe Jack Turner with damage on his car. So that's where a lot of that has come from. About to start lap 4 for your leader, Todd Scholl. Catalano's closing back down on him. John Payne moved up in the third, not too far away. So for the teammates of Turner and Sturm, it's been a difficult beginning. That's how the gravel comes back onto the track with moves like that.
Yeah, a lot of attempts here early in the race to make some I don't want to call them questionable, let's just say aggressive moves early in the race, because I can't say I wouldn't have done it myself, but still I think it might be a little bit too aggressive considering we're only 4 laps into this race. So I think a little bit of patience would help a bit here. Let the other guy make the mistake. Sit back, pressure him, sit in the mirrors, go from one mirror to the other, let them know you're there, and let them make the mistake. Don't try to push your nose in somewhere where it doesn't necessarily belong and end up causing an incident for yourself and someone else.
Russ Addy moves ahead of Gahadasi Orison. Mike McCormick, Greg Garris, Barry Hills and Bob Cohen sit in behind, and this battle for 4th slowly seeing the leading trio get away. Still Scholl from Catalano and John Payne, but getting ever closer. This is yet another series of issues for Franz of Sturm. Oh no! And it's as Ragnar Wisloff came back onto the track.
Yeah, that looks like a bad re-entry from my perspective. It looks like...
I think that's where those two got their meatballs.
Yeah, that definitely should have been a hey, watch out, somebody's coming around. Probably shouldn't have gone back onto the track at that point, so quite a bummer. Meanwhile, up in that P2 position, there's a very tight battle for P2. It's hard to tell who's going to come out ahead on this, but it looks like John Payne has got yet another position. He is up 5 on the day with Catalano down 2, but don't write him off just yet. This is a really good opportunity here, and like I was saying a minute ago, it is still early in this race.
Todd Scholl gets a little bit of extra breathing room with John Payne and Roberto Catalano battling it out. Jeff Browning looks like he's pulled off and out of this race. And that's that lead gap at 1.1 seconds. John Payne in second place, looking to cut that down quickly. 21 lap race 1, 21 lap race 2 also still to come. And as they come onto the pit straight, John Payne is just slightly trimming down the lead of Todd Scholl, who'll realise there is quite a bit of this race to go when one of the fastest drivers and the reigning champion has moved up from 7th on the grid to 2nd and has begun pursuing him.
Indeed. Now that battle for 4th, that whole train, as we look down that front straightaway there, we saw Scholl, Payne, and Catalano, but right behind them we had Addy, Urison, Garris, McCormick, Hills, Cohen, all in this wonderful little train, just trying to settle in, find their pace, and make the most of it. One of those guys is going to be P4. I feel pretty solid on that. I have no idea which one. Just this train making a beautiful, calm, perfect racing mindset move. They're holding on now. Like I was saying, now we're at 6 laps into this race. There's a lot of time to go. We're just in the first third of this race, so they're sitting back, biding their time, waiting for their opportunity, and we're going to see some movement coming up here pretty soon.
Of course, one of the big winners of this, Russ Addy, and even last lap, he was actually closing in on Roberto Catalano for 3rd, bringing a group of drivers with him along here as well. Heading downhill to the final corner and out of the final corner. Crossing the start-finish line, John Payne getting within just a couple of tenths of the race leader. Roberto Catalano managing to stabilise to a 120.7, while Russ Addy had a 121.3 in 4th place. So battling with Payne obviously cost Catalano a lot of time, but he's found his rhythm once more. It's here out of Atwood Curve that John Payne seems to have struck a really good line. Will be looking to get directly in line behind Todd Scholl, looking to slipstream, but I think he needs to be a little bit closer than that, even as he begins to haul in dramatically at the end of the straight. Not quite enough, not quite close enough. Todd Scholl maintains the race lead heading into the infield.
Just not even a lap ago, this was just over a second. They are now down to about a third of a second, which is just about where he wants to be. Time to react. Doesn't want to quite move in on him yet. Closing up a good bit there. It's still time-wise about the same. It's exactly what I'm talking about. You get too close, and you're going to be too close to react. But right now, as we watch, going through past that pit entry into the final corner, let's see who gets the better exit here as these guys come out of here, flying down this straightaway. Now we're going to see the opportunity for the draft. Now Payne he's got a little bit of an opportunity, but he decides I think a little bit better of it. I think his better opportunity there is going to be this uphill right-hander as we come down through this little left-hand sweep. As he goes up here, this is going to be a really good opportunity for him if he can get in there, but nope, looks like Scholl's just a little bit too quick. However, he is closer. It's down to just a quarter of a second. He's taken up almost a tenth. It is now under 2/10 as they work their way down. This is going to be it right here, going for the pass, gets in there, goes under braking, and yep, that looks like a clean pass to me. And this actually slows things down a bit and allows Robert Catalano to close up that gap just a little bit himself. So he is only about 6/10 off of Scholl at this point.
So the reigning champion didn't get qualifying right, but he lives for the racing and he's moved to the race lead, just chipping away at the gap, getting himself in the perfect position to use the slipstream on the back straight and braking in towards turn 5. John Payne leads now before the halfway point. Still 13 laps to go. With a short lap and some of the incidents we've seen, there will be a fair bit of lap traffic to catch as there's a slide to catch in the background. Was it Greg Garris, perhaps, who got a slide on through the final corner and then needed to use the brake pedal and locking up all 4 tyres to save it?
Yeah, he's got a bit of a gap now. He was part of that group going all the way back to Cohen, who were all really nice and tight together, looking like they're going to have a good run for that 4th place. Still held by Addy right now, but going back there, the gap is now a little bit over 2 seconds up to Berry Hills. So that was a little bit more going on there. Looks like people trying to spread a little of that gravel around and share some love.
Yeah, Greg Garris spinning to the inside, Bob Cohen pushing wide to the outside, giving us a very dramatic final corner. Your top 3 go past Jack Turner, I think. No, sorry, probably more likely Jerry Kerr as he goes a lap down. John Payne out to 1.2 second lead. Todd Scholl beginning to feel the pressure from Roberto Catalano. Been some very beautiful couple of laps in the sun leading this race for Todd Scholl, but the back half of this race looking a little more tough for him. John Payne leading, Roberto Catalano following the slipstream of Todd Scholl. They don't seem keen, any of these drivers, to make a move into turn 1, preferring to then just try to stay close through 2, through the sweepers of 3, uphill at turn 4, and then make you move the inside to turn 5.
I think it's going to be the
top of screen, battle for 4th, bottom of screen.
I think the better opportunity is after you go through this long turn uphill to the right. This is your better opportunity. This is why they're not going into into the first corner. They're able to hold on to the lead longer and aren't as concerned about anybody fighting back, about the person they're passing being able to fight back too effectively, because now you're in this really tight section, not a lot of opportunity for slipstream. Even this little straightaway, you don't get enough of anything to be able to close up, maybe half a tenth if you're lucky. So now we've got this battle for second opening back up. It is about 8/10 right now between Catalano and Scholl. Meanwhile, John Payne just checking out, a little over 2 seconds out in front of that fighting pair. And looking back at the battle for 4th place, Russ is holding on to this. He's just got there. He's about 2.5, 3 seconds off of Scholl, but 3/4 of a second behind him is a little bit of a battle all by itself, trying to come up and catch him and take that 4th spot.
So the absolutely perfect textbook move from Catalano gets him into 2nd. Todd Scholl will now need to try to drive consistently to hold on to a podium spot at the pace that Russ Addy's been able to demonstrate, and the peaks of pace from Gerhardus Jorgensen and Mike McCormick also going with him in 4th, 5th and 6th here. That looks like McCormick's found a good line and traction heading up the hill, following directly in the slipstream of the car in front, passing 230 kilometers an hour just as they head into the braking zone, down to about 100 k's an hour through the right-hander, down to about 115 descending downhill left, another place they just keep dragging gravel back onto the racetrack.
And these cars are so fast around the corner. I remember the first time I drove one of these, I was underestimating how much grip you had. If you look at those tires, look at from here, that view, you can see tiny little skinny tires, not a lot to them, but there's a fair amount of wing on here, and when you go around these corners, you feel like you're on rails. You can keep pushing it harder and harder. Meanwhile, it looks like McCormick is trying to make a little bit of a move here, and he gets his nose around front. Is he able to hold on to it? He's going to stick it in there, and he's got it stuck. Looks like battle for 5th. Mike McCormick is going to take that position and possibly hold on to it for a little while.
All started with Jorgensen wide out of the final corner, and with that kind of opportunity, Mike McCormick wasn't going to wait further around the lap and made his pass in towards turn 1, gave more space to Russ Addy. They're no longer quite slipstreaming him as they were times previous. John Payne with a 2.4 second lead, Roberto Catalano just breaking a second clear of Todd Scholl. Last lap, Russ Addy only able to bring about 1/10 of a second out of 3rd place, so he needs Russ Addy needs some miracle laps, and Todd Scholl is just driving within himself now that he's in a little bit of a 3rd place island. This is our eyes on 4th place.
Yeah, I find if I realize that through damage or lack of talent or whatever, if I'm, we got a little bit of an incident there. Who was that? Was that McCormick? Yeah, I think McCormick might have gotten a little bit of gravel there and got him spun around. So all that work he did, is all for naught as he goes back to 6th place.
Yeah, Gerhardus Jorgensen gets by him. He recovers just in front of Barry Hills and Greg Garris as we head into turn 1 with these drivers. Garris, basically a personal best last lap, has been closing in on Barry Hills. Now, obviously, both of them see Mike McCormick because of this mistake, so it's a bit of a slide, and then he gets the grass. So the two together causing to lose a lot of speed and momentum, and coming back on just in front of Barry Hills. Roberto Catalano has had a bit of traffic. Todd Scholl suddenly back within a second of him as the two of them have gone by to put a lap on JC Hay.
Yeah, meanwhile, John Payne pretty much checked out front. Looks like he's just kind of doing his own thing. Battle for 2nd, though, really heating up with Catalano and Scholl. Scholl is trying to hold on as best he can, hoping for a little bit more lapped traffic to get in the way. But from that shot right there, you can tell there's nobody anywhere close to help him get around. Next closest is going to be, I want to say, it's going to be Visloff. Who had that incident earlier. He may be able to help give somebody a little bit of a slipstream. Meanwhile, Scholl, though, has fallen back to just over a second, which puts our closest race right now going to be in that P7 with Garrison Hills trying to put up a little bit of a fight for us to see. Garris is just about 3 3.5 tenths off of him right now. So Hill's wanting to hold on to this position for sure, but I think Greg Garris has got a little something to fight for. Look at him closing up here, coming down, getting a bit of the slipstream, puts his nose out to the outside, coming into the braking zone. What's going on up in front of him, though? That's some slow-moving traffic. This is going to get exciting. A little bit of wheel-to-wheel knocking around, but back to the throttle. Garris is going to come out ahead in P7.
It's definitely not Francis Sturm, so it might be JC Hay as Greg Garris and Barry Hills go past. So Garris, now running wide, heading into the change of direction. Garris remains ahead of Barry Hills. Glowing brakes abound, and clearly the hot track. Drivers beginning to put a lot of heat into their tyres, beginning to slide around a little more. John Payne begins lap 15 of 21 in this race with a 4-second lead. Todd Scholl no longer as close to Roberto Catalano as once he was. Russ Addy in fourth, and it keeps the closest battle as between Greg Garris and Barry Hills right here. But I suspect if Garris can put his foot down, his personal best lap is quicker. He might be able to pull away and break away from Barry Hills.
Yeah, Garris is his best lap about 2 tenths faster. If he really is able to hook everything up, get it just dialed right in, he can open this up. It is already at a second, so now's the time to stop looking in the mirrors, look forward, get your nose down, and just turn these laps. Get on out there and just keep going. Once he's out little more than a second, it's going to take about 1.4, 1.6 seconds to be completely out of the area you need to get a little bit of a draft, but it's not that effective that far back. So I think he's going to be able to open this up and maybe go on his own hunt after Mike McCormick.
Jack Turner takes his repaired car past Jerry Kerr for 13th place. Franz Josef Sturm's gotten by JC Hay for 11th place. Both of those drivers are lapped down, and Franz Josef Sturm is trying to unlap himself on Bob Cohen, which has been interesting to see. Sturm very quick, but obviously one of the two drivers without a qualifying time, a driver that we've seen many times inside of the top 10, so he's got that sort of pace, but hasn't started from a competitive position in this particular race. Russ Addy, 7/10 lost last lap. Gerhardus Jorgensen now half a second behind him in this battle for 4th and 5th. Addy looks like he's going to try to break the toe as best he can, but I think it's too late once they're within about half a second.
Yeah, you get that half-second point, that's when you can really feel it in the car. Otherwise, you're just kind of noticing that your gap is changing a little bit, but man, you hit that half-second point, that's when things really start to happen. But it's a little bit twofold, because yeah, you do have the slipstream that is stronger, but you also have the person you're catching looking in their mirrors by that point, because once you get up to that point where you're within that range, then you start to worry them, and they're like, oh my, what's going to happen now? They're within that magical half second or so. Where do I need to defend on this next corner? Do I need to defend on this next corner? Did I get a better run out of the corner? Am I able to brake later? Am I able to brake some, to a better point in my towards the apex as I dive down in there? And this is where it really gets into your own head. So right now, Jorgensen is trying to hold on to that position, but looks like, or trying to take that position. Looks like Addy is still about a second out in front, though.
So a sector by sector breakdown on where the time went last lap. Sector 1 being quite short, I'm pretty sure is from the timing line to as you go into Atwood Curve Turn 4. So Sector 2 is predominantly the back straight and the braking zone into the hairpin, and then Sector 3 is final couple of corners and onto the front straight. When Russ Addy finds his rhythm and has a clean lap, it's very quick, but the last two, he's dropped from doing sort of 1 minute 20s into the 121s. Gerhardus Jorgensen also dropping just a little bit of pace now into this final sector. 4 laps to go as out the front John Payne has crossed the line. 4 seconds clear of Catalano, now 3 seconds clear of Scholl, who remains 4 seconds clear of this battle you see right there of Addy and Jorison. John Payne, I think, has just put Ragnar Wisloff the lap down. This is your race leader and your defending champion.
Looks like Jorison may have had a little bit of an issue. That gap is opening up. It was just a second. Now it's almost 1 3/4, 1.6. Maybe a little bit of grass coming out of a corner. So, or it could just be thinking, I got better things to do than crash a car right now. So I'm going to hold on to this position. P5, not a bad place to be. It is down 1 from where he started, but still not a bad place to be. Meanwhile, going up here, taking a look at the number 2 of John Payne, who once he got up front, made up those 6 positions, he has been pretty much unstoppable, making his way around that lap traffic, being cool as a cucumber every single time. We are about to start lap number 19.
And it's a new fastest lap of the race for John Payne. I was just noticing his previous lap had dropped a little bit of time. John Payne has a real habit of setting the fastest lap of the race inside of the final 2 or 3 laps, and I was wondering if that was a trend that was going to be broken based on these high track temperatures that have continued to rise, now approaching 45 degrees Celsius. But then John Payne goes and puts in a new race best 120.046. A 119 could be coming.
I think if anybody can do it, he can. Robert Catalano, though, behind him, trying to get down there. He is still about 4 tenths off on his best lap, 3.5 tenths on his fastest lap. So I don't know if he's quite got it in him. But, you know, you let those tires cool down a lap. He's got nobody trying to attack him from behind. Scholl is a good 3-4 seconds behind him. So he's got an opportunity to slow it down just a little bit, let the tire stabilize a bit, and then really put in a burner, because this is only the 19th. We've got 20 and 21 to go. So now coming up soon will be his opportunity to try to take that fast lap.
McCormick's looking for pass number 2 on Gerhardus Jorison. He successfully pulled it off earlier and then lost it at this corner, top of the hill. So with just a few laps to go, he's going to need to try to set up his rival perfectly once again. Speed out of the final corner, slipstream on the pit straight. Looking towards sweeping turns 1 and 2 to just stay close as possible through here. John Payne looks like he had another tyre cooling lap. We'll keep an eye on what the fastest lap of the race does. Off camber through the left-hander at turn number 2. McCormick looks to stay close enough. Tight line exiting the right-hander seems to work pretty well right here. So we'll see what McCormick does. Late on the brakes, late turn in, looking for a tight line, climbing the hill. And that number of car lengths back, I think this could happen, heading towards a hairpin braking zone. As they pass about 220 kilometers an hour, the slipstream becomes very powerful. Heading towards the braking zone, no overlap yet. Gerhardus Jorison holds 5th.
Yeah, Jorison had a good idea there. He didn't take it super tight on that uphill right-hander. He took it a lot wider, maintained a higher average speed, although it is a little bit slower. But once he got going down the straightaway, he still had 2 or 3 kilometers an hour over his rival, so he was able to hold on to that position. As we watch them go through these little twisty bits, this is where it's going to get really exciting, because now is the point where you really want to get tight up under the wing, and I just don't think he's close enough. I don't think we're going to be able to see a pass down into turn 1 here as they come across, starting their final lap.
Yeah, it will be just one more opportunity as well for Mike McCormick here, not as close as he was on the previous laps. John Payne leading perfectly from the front on what could be a victory lap. Catalano and Scholl looking like they'll complete the podium. Intervals on your timing column there show that McCormick's now 6 tenths behind Gerhardus Jorison. So Jorison doing the right stuff on the final lap here. John Payne, is it going to be a final lap, fastest lap? With Ragnar Wisloff just behind him, multiple laps down. A bit of a what could have been for the Norwegian, who's going to finish 15th in this one. John Payne's just got a couple of corners to see out to his first victory, to try to kick off a new season in perfect form. told us at the end of last season he might not be able to make every race. He might not be in the title fight, but he's always, when he's on the track, in the fight for the race win. Even when he starts 7th on the grid, he got to the lead before halfway, and he opens the new season, the 60-plus racing adventures, with a win to John Payne.
Yeah, nicely done. Looking back towards Catalano here. Catalano coming up past the corner. He takes 2nd. Scholl is in 3rd. That will be our podium for this race. Again, Payne, Catalano, and Scholl.
Quite a number of cars are lapped down. I think Jerry Kerr might be the last to see the checkered flag. Japanese Barney's got a very interesting checkered flag waving technique here. It's circuit by circuit what checkered flag waving technique the flag man has got. And they're all going to come across and take that checkered flag. John Payne gave up a little bit of time towards the end, but he still came away with the fastest lap of the race on lap 18, a 1:20.046. His winning margin 2.7 seconds ahead of Roberto Catalano, the pole sitter. Todd Scholl 3rd to 3rd, but with a couple of laps leading. And then Russ Addy in 4th, Gerhardus Jorgensen in 5th, able to fend off Mike McCormick the second time of asking, who finished in 6th. Greg Garris in 7th, Barry Hills in 8th, Bob Cohen 9th, and Peter Holstrom completes the top 10 and was in fact the last driver on the lead lap, because you see that with damage and repairs, Franz Josef Sturm and Jack Turner were each 1 lap down. JC Hay likewise, who I think also started from the pit lane potentially, or started from the back of the grid. Jerry Kerr, Ragnar Wisloff, Douglas Beasley laps down here, as well as Jeff Browning. So a couple of retirements right at the end there as well from 16th and 17th. And we never saw Bill Smitham in qualifying or on the grid or in this race. Maybe we'll see him for race number 2. Drivers are going to join us, and yeah, it looks like a fair bit of our podium is going to join us. I'll throw to you, Michael, with 2nd place Roberto Catalano.
For me.
All right, Roberto. What a race, man! How did that feel? You got to lead for a while. You had some good battles through it. I think you probably had one of the most exciting races you could have had in quite a while.
Yes, it's true. But I do 2 mistakes in lap 1, and John is too fast for me. My only hope is create a great gap with him, but my 2 mistakes don't possible. He too fast for me.
Well, you still did a nice job in this race. You did get to lead for quite a few laps. When you started off this race, what did you think your chances were to finish in 1st, and what do you think your chances were to finish on the podium?
I think that my chance to finish in the first are if John don't participate in the next races. I hope for the podium. I think there are many drivers very fast, but I hope for the podium, and I am happy that I do the first pole position. I have number 1, and then I think that it's impossible for this.
Well, that was quite a race. It was enjoyable to watch you. You did a beautiful job. Is there anybody you'd like to say thanks to?
Thank you.
Great. Well, that was our 2nd place finisher, doing a fantastic job. Who else do we have in here with us today, ready for an interview?
I'm going to get to our race winner, John Payne, and you told us you might not be able to do every round this season, John, but here you are, race 1, and right back in winning form.
Well, I couldn't miss you guys. I saw that was on the schedule. I was like, I got to make room for that.
But did you make enough room in turn 1 on lap 2 of qualifying?
No, I had plenty of room. actually passed the limits apparently. Yeah, that was I thought in watching him practice, Roberto seemed to be quicker on 2-3 laps, and so I was pretty resigned to start in second, but it was worse than that.
Certainly set you up to need to do a lot of work in the first half of the race. And what did you discover about we're in a new build of iRacing. Some things change a little bit, even if they're not meant to. And what did you discover about the tyre warm-up, about the slipstream, about this updated track? What's the new feeling?
I don't know that I noticed a whole heap of difference. In practice, I had my best on the telemetry. I had my all-time best lap, and I was able to get in that ballpark. So for me, I thought everything's about as it all shakes out. But I'm not the best person to ever ask that stuff to. I just try to go as fast as I can, and that was that.
You did go fast as you could on lap 18 with the fastest lap of the race. Was there any strategy to trying to do that?
Well, yeah, because in the past, Roberto, since I didn't get the pole and I had an off track, so the only extra point I could get was leading the most laps and fast lap. So I was watching Roberto, and he can pop one of those off too. So I decided to just, you're halfway through the lap and you're up on your telemetry and you're like, okay, just string a few more corners together and it'll be there. And that's what I do. I always run with telemetry on, and sometimes that's a bad thing because you just start hot lapping instead of, worrying about you're actually in a race. And it has caught me out a few times.
Well, for the most part, you've brought it all together for race number 1. Not too long till race number 2. We're going to see you there.
Yeah, I think I can do it. Try to qualify a little better and see what shakes out.
There'll be a few drivers looking to do a little better in race number 2. Francis Sturm stowed a little bit of speed. Ragnar Wisloff was multiple laps down, but kind of hanging with you there. So we'll see if race 2 looks a fair bit different on the grid and in the racing, and we'll see you there, John.
Yeah, when I saw Ragnar spin in front of me, I was like, well, that sucks for him, but good for me. But yeah, we'll see how race 2 goes. So
John Payne, race 1 winner, joining us. We take a little break here on RaceSpotTV, and we'll come back with qualifying and race 2 of this opening round of 60 plus racing adventures. See you shortly. back at Okayama International Circuit. It's time for race 2 of 60 plus racing adventures. The opening round of a new season for the Super Formula Light 60 plus racing adventures longest division, a league that's grown to have many divisions that we also cover here on RaceSpotTV. For the most seasons and the most competitors, the open wheeler junior cars have been incredibly popular for 60 plus racing adventures. David Haynes with Michael Johnson and Ramiro on production for us as we head back to this rescanned, updated, graphically improved Okayama International Circuit. Ready just in time, Michael, for qualifying.
Indeed we are. It's about 3.7 kilometers around this track, and it is grueling. You've got uphill, downhill, tight hairpins, sweeping corners, a little bit of everything in that 2.3 miles. So this track really does put you through your paces and can be quite challenging if you're really not super comfortable with it. You don't have a lot of runoff out of these corners, and every time you think you've got a little bit more speed, well, you usually end up meeting the grass or the dirt or maybe a little gravel out there and find out, well, it wasn't quite what I thought it was. So it can be quite challenging. Once again, we're looking at about 40 degrees Celsius, 104 Fahrenheit on the track. That should be pretty comfortable for these guys. This is exactly what we had for the last race. So I think when we get out there and start watching, I think we're going to see some low 20s. Possibly somebody might hit the 19s. I'm thinking, I don't know, John Payne possibly. What do you think?
Well, I'm thinking that with 2 qualifying laps to run in 10 minutes, a heap of our drivers had just begun their first flying laps. John Payne was one of the first drivers to begin their first flying lap of qualifying, which was not the problem for him in race 1. The problem was qualifying lap number 2. So
yeah, that second one didn't work well for him, as he had a little bit too much room, I think is what he said in turn 1. So hopefully this time he's able to put it together, although it was really entertaining to watch him work his way through up for the win on that last race.
Greg Garris is also one of the first drivers we're going to see a lap time from, and then we'll see where they all stand going into lap number 2 as well. Following Douglas Beasley at the moment, very throwback traditional F1 livery from just a little bit before F1 came to Okayama Circuit, or as it was known then, TI Ada. It's had a little bit of a rebrand in the time in between. So one of the first times we're going to see will be John Payne. The timing column will reflect his time that has counted at a 121 flat. Greg Garris a 121.4. Douglas Beasley's time looking like it hasn't counted. And I think he's the same length around on the track as the rest. Roberto Catalano goes to the top with his first time, now 120.7. John Payne specifically name-checking Roberto Catalano is probably his biggest rival for pole here at Okayama. And then Ragnar Wisloff into 5th, Barry Hill 6th, then a few more will slice and chop around with these first barrage volley of lap times.
Looks like Todd Scholl has slid into the P3 there with a very nice lap time. Looking at a 121.071. Nice little lap put together there. That is just a hair away from John Payne at a 0.68. So these guys are really bringing it this time. I think we're going to see John Payne try to get that extra little bit on this lap as we watch him go through here. This is on board with him, using every last millimeter possible. Gets out there on the green paint and then rockets down the straightaway, crosses the finish line, and takes first so far. That's a 20.368.
Significant improvement for him, significant improvement for Greg Garris. Now we're going to see what Roberto Catalano can do. Can he take pole for back-to-back races? The answer is no. He falls about a 1/10 of a second short, slotting into second place. Ragnar Wisloff goes to third. Franz Josef Sturm to 9th. Mike McCormick into 5th. So for me, that's a very, very competitive top 2 rows of the grid at the moment. Todd Scholl on the podium after race 1, qualifies 4th for race 2. Oh, now he moves up into 3rd, so it's an even better qualifying from Todd Scholl. That's super competitive. Within 2/10 of John Payne, pushes Ragnar Wisloff down to 4th. There's only one driver who hasn't completed 2 laps right now, and it's Bob Cohen.
Yeah, Bob
not having through his 2.
Yeah, Bob didn't have the greatest lap. I don't think it counted his first lap out, or maybe that was only his.
I think he's on his out lap right now. I think he's just. Yeah. I think he's just marching to the beat of his own drum, using the back half of the 10 minutes of the session.
You know, this is a trick you can do that I use when I have time. I let everybody else get out there and put rubber down on the track. So once they've done it, if I have the time, I'll go out later and then start putting my laps down, and hopefully that gives me that little bit of extra grip I need so I can hopefully get closer to the front.
Todd Scholl has moved Ragnar Wisloff from 3rd down to 4th. Bob Cohen's the only driver with any laps left. He started his first flying lap through the flat-out S's of Turn 3 into Atwood Corner, climbing right hill up-hander. Is that a word? Is that the way that I meant to say it? Not sure. But he's going to get up to speed without any slipstream in qualifying. Peak speed's looking like about 227 kilometres an hour for these drivers. Bob Cohen reaching just about that on this lap, and he'll need to be careful. We've seen that initially the tyres are very difficult to handle before that they've got temperature.
Yeah, Bob Cohen, look at him go through there. The car looks absolutely just rock solid stable. I think he's got himself in a good position with the traction out there. Meanwhile, JC Hay sitting at the pit exit. I'm wondering if he's going to try to put a lap down or if he's just going to do a run from the back. Meanwhile, back to Bob Cohen. The car is absolutely hooked up. Just watch him go around there. You see no wiggling, no weirdness through there. Meanwhile, pulls a 22.4. Now it's time to put down the burner lap. That was the banker lap. Now it's time for the burner lap. Let's see what he can do with this.
So looking for the first sector time for Bob Cohen on the lap that he just completed. It was a 1:19 flat. It's a 1:18.9 on this lap. So he's already found about a 10th through the first sector. Through the rest of the lap, just looking to lean on the car a little more, carry a bit more speed, have the confidence to brake a little bit deeper, and just shave a couple of tenths off lap number 1 into lap number 2. Gone and taken a tiny bit more time along the back straight as well, but this is the part here where we've seen drivers struggle with traction and power down out of the shorter, sharper corners, and that's what more tyre temperature should give you more confidence with. 17.9 the middle sector last time. He goes in 18.4, so actually a bit of time lost in the hairpin and the double left-handers. And Bob Cohen, his second lap looks like it might not be an improvement on his first lap.
Yeah, so far looking just a little bit down, but don't count him out just yet. The quickest part, or the easiest part to make up time. Now, right there, though, we saw as he came through that last corner, if we compare what Bob Cohen was doing to John Payne when we saw John run through there, John used every bit of that green that he could possibly get away with. And now we're going to go over here and take a look. I believe this is going to be JC Hay. Nope, sorry. This is Ragnar trying to get a couple extra laps in there. See how the car feels. He's got time. Why not go ahead out there and see if he can do a run that maybe doesn't count, but at least gives him a little confidence once he gets into the race.
He's trying to make up the 7 laps down that he finished race 1, potentially like staying after school to complete your homework or something. We'll see. He's been, as we mentioned, dislodged from 3rd on the grid by the late lap that came in from Todd Scholl, giving us a very competitive 1st, 2nd and 3rd, and Wisloff just thought, I need to get a time in here. It does not look like JC Hay is going to go out on track for qualifying, and there's not enough time left either way. So with 16 Super Formula lights, Jan-Erik Skrefsrud and JC Hay are going to be the two drivers without qualifying times. And momentarily we'll go look at the grid of the drivers that did set qualifying times. Ragnar Wisloff, he wants a podium. I think we saw the kind of pace he had to match John Payne in race 1. The only problem was that he was 6 to 7 laps down on John Payne, but he would have learnt and studied some of John Payne's lines in race 1, and he might think a good result is possible in race 2. This is your super competitive front rows of the grid for race number 2. John Payne just 92 thousandths ahead of Roberto Catalano, who's shown some really strong pace, at least across one lap. Todd Scholl, really consistent in race 1 and a really consistent qualifying performance for race 2 means he'll start from 3rd on the grid 2 races in a row, just ahead of Ragnar Wisloff in 4th. Then Russ Addy, one of the big movers of race number 1, will start out of 5th. Mike McCormick, who we saw make moves, drop back, and then need to make moves again, starts out of 6th. Then Greg Garris is in 7th, ahead of Barry Hills in 8th. Hill's teammate Gerhardus Jorrison just behind him in 9th. And then teammates again together here. Franz Josef Sturm in 10th with Jack Turner in 11th. Peter Hallstrom qualifying in 12th. We got to study Bob Cohen's qualifying very closely. It netted him 13th place, ahead of Douglas Beasley in 14th. And then 15th would be Jan-Erik Skrefsrud and 16th JC Hay. Neither of those drivers set qualifying times, don't appear in that graphic, but at least JC Hay is appearing on the grid for this formation lap rolling start.
I'm interested to see what Sturm can do on this one. Remember, last race he started, it was either from pit lane or the last row. This time he's in 10th, so got lapped, was the first car in the cars that got lapped in that last race. This time, though, he's in a much better position, up in P10, and I think he stands a good chance to fight forward from here. After that last race, getting a little bit of an idea of what everybody else is doing and how they're racing, the lines they're taking. Let's see what Franz Josef can do as we get almost ready to go for the launch of race number 2.
Taking in the sights and sounds of Okayama International Circuit in this new iRacing update, I'm noticing, man, they've gone and put out a heap more fire extinguishers. So you're never more than 50 meters from a fire extinguisher at Okayama now, which is very, very good news. And also good news, every driver took to the grid, including the 2 drivers, without qualifying times, giving us a full 16 Super Formula lights behind the pace car and behind your pole sitter, John Payne. We saw what Payne was capable of from 7th on the grid. Now as he looks to start the race from pole, it's going to be on Roberto Catalano, Todd Scholl and Ragnar Wisloff to stay within the slipstream zone, not let John Payne break away. Payne is slowly behind the pace car, going to bring them through the final corner. Another 21-lap race for 60-plus racing adventures ahead of us. And your pole sitter slowing down to 60 kilometers an hour before mashing the throttle, green flag waving. They're all over to the right-hand side of the track, up against the pit wall. Now John Payne comes back across to take the full racing line through turn 1. Roberto Catalano follows him through as well. Ragnar Wisloff going around the outside of Todd Scholl and up into 3rd place. Gives himself a narrow entry into the off-camber turn 3, but a near-perfect start from John Payne. A huge amount of congestion around 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th.
Yeah, Hills and Garris able to exchange positions just a couple of times running through there. Currently, Hills being the one in front, gaining that position overall, Garris losing. Meanwhile, heading down the back straight here, coming up into hairpin. A little bit of a defensive move, trying to get up into the braking zone. Here they go, heavy onto the brakes, get the car in there, turned around,
Barry Hills
and then
locks
power
up.
out.
He's gone around at the hairpin. Barry Hills dropping backwards massively as he got too deep into the braking zone, locked the rears, and now finds himself in a super precarious spot that he needs to flick, spin around. So that happened in the midfield. Gives some positions to Gerhardus Jorrison and Jack Turner and Bob Cohen, and JC Hay from the very back of the grid is up 4 positions now, but it's a lightning start from John Payne, 1.3 seconds clear as we look at this replay of Barry Hills.
Yeah, watch here as Barry comes into the corner there, had made up a little bit of space, gets it a little bit too tight on those front brakes. Needed to have that brake bias just a little bit more to the rear, but holding on here, holding position, letting everyone get past so he doesn't create an incident.
Critically, his own teammate just avoiding collecting his spun car as well. So it's a position gained for Jorgensen, much to the detriment of his teammate Barry Hills, and Jan-Erik Skrefsrud down in 16th place at the end of that first lap as well. John Payne leading 1.1 seconds just beyond the slipstream for Roberto Catalano to really be able to close him in on the back straight. This might be what John Payne needs, but what John Payne also needs is consistency, because a little mistake would have Roberto Catalano all over him, and the two of them also pulling away from Ragnar Wisloff, who had to battle wheel to wheel with Todd Scholl. And Russ Addy's also gone by Todd Scholl, so a great start from Wisloff and Addy. Todd Scholl dropping back into 15th. We ride on board with him right now.
Yeah, looking here from the T-bar as we come up into this tight little right-hander right before the end here. You'll see the pit entry up here on the right side. You just nick that curbing coming out to the outside. Little touch of brake, then back to the throttle quickly. Get all the way out there onto that green just like that. Todd Scholl showing us how that final turn is supposed to be done. He's got a little bit of a slipstream here coming down into turn one. Nicely done. Picks it up and goes back to throttle, trying to undo some of that damage that was done down 2 positions from where he started, but I'm not sure if he's going to keep going backwards. I think he's got his eyes forward very strong.
Scholl's consistency, I think, was definitely his strength in race 1. Was not flustered by leading the race. The quicker drivers of Payne and Catalano caught him, but he didn't allow that to pressure him into a mistake, and he still claimed his well-deserved podium and 3rd position. So I think the consistency and not letting the moment get to his head could be his strength here, while Wisloff needs this race to be a result after race 1, and Russ Addy might be a little more likely to succumb to some pressure. Todd Scholl just half a second behind him as they work their way through here as well, just beginning to drop Mike McCormick. JC Hay remains the biggest mover of this race from 16th on the grid to 12th. It has Holstrom, Beasley and Barry Hills just behind him. Everyone after race 1 pretty well practiced, and it's much, I'll jinx it, much cleaner so far in race 2.
Yeah, race 1 by lap 4, we'd had several cars already going around, but this time it is much cleaner. We've only had the one car spinning around, but nobody got collected from that. So I think it was a really good reminder for everyone. When you spin, both feet in, you gotta put the clutch in, you gotta hold onto that brake and just wait for the car to stop. Then come back in when it's safe to do so. Meanwhile, looking back in the pack just a little bit, I want to go back and take a look at Bob Cohen, who has been moving up here pretty well. He is up 3 positions. Oh, there we go with, that's going to hurt. That going backwards into a wall is never good.
But conveniently close to a fire extinguisher. That's why Jan-Erik Skrefsrud's the only driver who's been through the pit lane and needed to repair his car. Bob Cohen, whose qualifying effort we closely interrogated just ahead of Franz Josef Sturm. So Cohen's made some spots. Sturm's dropped one. Now Cohen is splitting the teammates of Turner and Sturm. Ragnar Wisloff pulling away in 3rd. Russ Addy feeling some pressure from Todd Scholl for 4th position. Kicks up a little bit of dust and gravel, but uses all of Michael Johnson's coaching tips to use the painted concrete on the outside of the curb of the final corner to carry speed down the pit straight and remain close.
Yeah, that's one of the easiest things to cover in coaching, quite honestly, is almost nobody, including me, when I'm not really aware of it, uses as much of the track as you should be using. So one of the first things any coach is going to tell you is they're going to look at video and say, you've got another half a car width out here, quarter car width out here, or sometimes maybe it's only a tire width, but you've got more space to go. Oh, you're just missing the apex. But watch these guys as they come down the straight here. See, they're just catching that little dog leg as they come up into the braking zone, and then just nosing the car in very nicely, using as much of the track as they can. And a lot of that curb right there, though, is kind of dangerous. It'll unsettle the car. The second one there, so going through a revolver, it is a little bit unsettling when you head in there. But Piper, a little bit smoother. You can get a bit more of it. And looks like we have a black flag.
Yeah, it's been tough for Yannick Skrefsrud. He's been through pit lane twice. He may have had an unsafe pit exit or speeding in pit lane or something else. So there will be a third trip to the pit lane, unfortunately, for Yannick Skrefsrud. Oh, with the latest iRacing update, there's also... He doesn't get classified as Club Scandinavia. It says he's Norwegian now, but it's then less specific for all of the drivers from the United States. Looking at Russ Addy still just ahead of Todd Scholl, Mike McCormick finding his personal best lap of the race just behind them in 6th as well. So as this goes on, Scholl becomes squeezed somewhat between Russ Addy and Mike McCormick, who's finding his legs.
Yeah, looking here at Addy and Scholl, this is a really good battle for 4th place. Scholl is closing up a little bit under a half a second here. This is keeping Addy from being able to try to make an attack on Wislov. So Russ Addy trying to make sure that Todd Scholl stays behind him. Scholl is adamant about getting back around. He's down 2 positions. He wants at least one of those back. And then we take a look here also at the battle for 9th place. That's going to be Jack Turner. Bob Cohen coming up onto him, as well as Franz Josef Sturm right behind him. This is a 3-way battle to get into that P9 position.
Cohen was just a little bit wide, but then has found his momentum once again to shake off Franz Josef Sturm. John Payne sets a new personal best, I think is also the new fastest lap of the race out front, so he's beginning to flex his muscles on Roberto Catalano, who's doing pretty well to go with him, leaving the rest of the field in their collective dust. It's a significant gap to Wislov in 3rd. His last lap cost him a little bit of time. In fact, he's been cost quite a bit of time. Suddenly Wislov's under pressure from Russ Addy, and a whole group between 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th begins to form. Todd Scholl could strike and make a profit out of this.
Indeed he could. He's in a really good position in the catbird seat, as it's called often, and I think he can probably fight his way back up. But honestly, seeing Russ from the last race and how Russ was able to hold on to the position and really put in a good fight, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Todd's going to be able to get back around him. I recommend we keep our eye on this a little bit, because I expect a good bit of racing going to happen here with some nice attempts, some nice defense. These two are going to put on a really nice show for us.
New PB for Roberto Catalano. Ragnar Wislov also finds a reasonable enough lap just to get beyond that 1 second of Russ Addy. Todd Scholl dropping just a couple of tenths there behind Russ Addy as well. Mike McCormick still getting closer. So not seeing quite as much overtaking as we saw out of race 1. There's just perhaps too much consistency, not enough mistakes to let drivers get close enough. And amongst this group in particular, battling for the top 5.
Yeah, this group also a little more used to the track. They've just had a 21-lap race where they got to feel how the track evolves, how the tires feel on it, and just got a really good feel for what's going to happen as the tires wear down and the track does get hotter. So, yeah, this is a better showing, because just a little more experience in these exact conditions.
Scholl still pretty close through the slow corners. We ride on board with him right now through the faster final corners, using plenty of width of the track on the way into the final corner, opening up the hands. Scholl will pass 200 kilometers an hour in 5th gear, shifting up into 6th just before the short braking zone into turn 1. It does also close in plenty on Russ Addy, but it just seems that in relatively equally matched drivers, if you're going to make a pass, you've got to be close down here at turn 4, and you want to be 1 or 2 car lengths closer going into here, following up the hill. And if anything, the amount of slipstream that Todd Scholl's going to get on Russ Addy's going to get from Ragnar Wisloff, and you have the slipstreaming equivalent of a DRS train.
Indeed, and this is a good place. So when you come through Atwood, coming down to that hairpin, this is probably one of your best opportunities, although you can find yourself in a little overspeed, especially if you've gotten a really good launch out of Atwood and you get into a nice little bit of air that's being, I guess, disturbed from the car in front of you, but it also sort of sucks you in when you get to a certain distance, and you just get into that overspeed situation where you actually need to go into the brakes a good 10, maybe 15 meters earlier than you're used to because you're going so much faster. And as long as they're aware of that, they should be good. But wow, look at these guys hitting that last corner. I love seeing that every last tiny bit of green getting covered by those skinny little tires on this car.
If you paid for the whole racetrack, you've got to use the whole racetrack, and Todd Scholl paid for all the gears, so he's going to use all of them. I've seen him first gear through the hairpin all the way up to 6th on both of the straights. Some of them, I think, were staying in 2nd gear through the turn 5 hairpin. Out of turn 4 we go. We'll find out shortly. Ragnar Wisloff leading Russ Addy, leading Todd Scholl, leading Mike McCormick. On the lap that they just completed, it was Russ Addy who was the fastest of the group. And Todd Scholl was just wishing for the straight to be 200 metres longer or so. Perhaps Russ Addy now beginning to put more pressure on Ragnar Wisloff amongst this group of drivers.
Yeah, it's interesting with that hairpin. So having driven this car here in the sim, I found myself in 1st or 2nd gear, just depending on mood almost. I at first opening couple of laps, because the tires aren't quite up to temperature, I was dropping to 1st, but then as the tires got warm and I got a little more confident, I didn't have anyone in front of me, I was taking it in 2nd and finding I wasn't losing any time. And the real world racing side of me defaults to, let's do fewer gear shifts if we can get away with it. So I didn't want to go down to 1st for that extra gear shift down and extra gear shift up. If I can leave it in 2nd and make just as good time, I'm going to 8 days a week.
Taking a look at a replay, Peter Holstrom, that'll be in behind JC Hay, and he loses the rear just as he got a little bit too close and nearly got entirely collected by Douglas Beasley there, who didn't know which side of the racetrack to go to avoid Peter Holstrom between the two of them. It's almost beating a dead horse, kicking a man when he's down to show too many replays of Jan-Erik Skrefsrud. But he's trying to make sure that he doesn't get in the way of any of the leaders or anyone else's battle, and I think actually did a pretty damn good job of it. John Payne 2.2 seconds ahead of Roberto Catalano. All of the action seems to have been between 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th, the battle we return to. So Addy taking a wide line into the uphill right-hander. Todd Scholl trying to minimise the distance, taking the autocross kind of way. Out the final corner will go. Crossing the halfway point of this race now. 11 completed, just 10 to go. If you're going to make a move, got to start thinking that it's going to happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah, we are getting easily deep into the second half of this race. Well, not deep into it, but just getting into the second half of this race. Now is the time to be sizing up the people around you. This is who you're going to finish the race with. Are you going to be able to get around them? Do you need to get into their head? Do you need to get out of your own head? So this is kind of the spot where a lot of these decisions are made. We are on board with Ragnar Wisloff right here as we come down into this hairpin. We've got some close racing, not quite close enough to get up into a good passing position. I think there's still maybe a little bit of sizing up going on here as we go through Piper, take that little bit of extra curbing, power down, and this bit, I always have trouble here. This is one of the hardest corners on this track. It doesn't look that difficult, but because it's so slow and you have to really get the car back around for that hairpin around to the right, it can be challenging. Now we're here we are coming up to the final corner. Good bit of curbing on the inside, all the way to the outside, even kicking up a little bit of dust there from Russ Addy. This is a good little group. These guys are going to put on a good race for us for the next 8 laps or so.
Fastest lap of the race still currently belonging to John Payne. As we go split screen with the battle and on board with Mike McCormick, who's got great view of it. Watching, waiting, is something going to take place? Can I make a change that might let me move forward? So Wislaw was the fastest of this group last lap. Russ Addy seems to have had a very good start to this lap. Not to be close enough top of screen there to quite challenge Wislaw into the hairpin. And then Scholl just taking it easy as McCormick got a little bit closer to him. No one wants to be the one to spin out of this group though. So I'm not seeing anything that looks super aggressive just yet.
I think they're really still trying to size each other up, figure out where is the weakness. As we see from Mike McCormick right there, weakness trying to cut some grass a little bit, but doesn't affect him too much as we come through that final corner, puts the power down and tries to hold on to this position. Meanwhile, Ragnar Wislaw out front of this group, opening up that gap just a little bit. Looks like Mike McCormick has been able to hold on to it, closing that up. So meanwhile, Wislaw has about a 4/10 gap. Also back to Scholl about 4/10. It's only 3 back to Mike McCormick. So that little agricultural excursion he took did not affect him too poorly.
Field mostly spreading out everywhere else. The top 2 put in some pretty good laps that fall just a 10th or so short of improving their personal best of the race. Same said for this group of drivers, all of them just within 2/10 of PB pace. McCormick looks very close to Todd Scholl right now, closest of anyone in this group, looking for a lane to try to outbrake his rival. Scholl always goes tight into the right-hander here, while the others open it up on the way in. Scholl always still seems to get a pretty good exit there at the top of the hill. Often to my surprise, now he looks within a car length or so of Russ Addy, who runs it just a little bit wide. No traction if you put your outside tyres in the dirt there. Addy drops back from Wislaw. Todd Scholl looks a little bit closer, and they've got just 7 laps left for any change to take place here.
Yeah, Addy losing a little bit of touch with Ragnar, but Scholl seems to be holding about the same pace. Addy just moving a little bit back into Scholl. Meanwhile, Mike McCormick is not really closing this up now. He may have had a little grass touch again, although he's shown the ability to come out of that pretty quick as we watch this group once again going down to hairpin. Is this an opportunity for Todd Scholl? Takes a little bit of a look while Mike McCormick tries to close up that gap just a tiny bit, coming out of hairpin into revolver. This is a quick little section here. You really got to place the car just right, or you get spun out. It's not a fun place to catch a little bit too much dirt. Other places you can kind of get away with it, as we watch them coming through just this last section through Mike Knight corner into that last corner right here. As we drop in, a little bit of apex, pushing it all the way out. Wow. Every single time Russ Addy just catches a little bit more of that dirt, and off in the distance in the back, I think that's going to be Greg Garris trying to become part of this train.
Yeah, he followed just a little bit likewise. Unfortunately, just 2-3 seconds behind this group. Not quite part of the slipstream fest happening here. Last time around, Todd Scholl was within just a couple of car lengths, and he began to really close on Russ Addy more than Addy was getting the slipstream from Wislaw. This will be a replay of Gahadis Jorison getting in a little bit tight, losing the rear, and just maybe grazing the wall on his way to get out of that. It's dropped Skahardis Jorison back a couple of spots behind Franz Josef Sturm, Jack Turner, and Barry Hills. So no change on the back straight for this group in third, but if Jorison can find the pace that he had previously, he might be able to get back past Barry Hills or Jack Turner around the fringes of the top 10. Looking like we'll have significantly more cars on the lead lap at the end of race 2.
Yeah, much cleaner race this time around. I think we have only 2 cars that are down. One of them was either DNS or an early exit. I think it was an early exit, and then we saw the issues with Jan Erik earlier on in the race. He's about 4 laps down on the leader. So meanwhile, checking in again, this battle for third, I think it's heating up a bit. I see a whole lot more, we'll just call it smoke or steam. It's actually just the dirt from the side of the track. But the cars behind, so Scholl and McCormick for sure, getting out there and just using up every bit of track as they can. They're trying to get in a little bit closer. Here they come once again down into the hairpin. All 4 of them just nicked that corner deep into the braking, a little bit deeper for Scholl. He kind of missed the apex there as they come back around. Ooh, coming up into Piper. Is this where we're going to see a little bit opening up, or are they going to just kind of keep going in this train? And oh no, it looks like Mike has gone around. Mike McCormick went around there. This battle for third is now down to 3.
McCormick also loses a spot to Greg Garris, gets back on the road, doesn't seem to have done too much or really any damage to the car other than losing 5 seconds or so from... Well, it's a slide on the way in. It continues to be a slide, and then that pushes him wide onto the grass, which makes it even more difficult to recover from the slide, and then he spins, coming back onto the racetrack. That's where most of the time will be lost for Mike McCormick. And just thought, okay, only a couple of laps left, time to really try to push this. And he pushed beyond that limit, lost the rear of the car, and then has lost the position because of it. Becomes a battle of 3 between Wistloff, Addy, and Todd Scholl to be the last to stand on the podium, and Russ Addy is right with Ragnar Wistloff coming through turn 4. Wistloff has the shallow exit off the corner. Russ Addy runs it a little bit wider, but I think he's still close enough that once they reach about here, 220 k's an hour, the slipstream becomes more powerful. Russ Addy pulled out of the draft too early. What did he do that for?
I think he was trying to catch a little air to keep himself from getting too close. He didn't necessarily want to pass yet. There's one thing to pass because you can. It's another thing to pass because you should. And as he came up in there, he knew he was going to spend the next 2-3 laps until the end trying to fight exactly that same thing. So I think he was just testing to see if he could get close enough. Where should he place the car to be able to make that pass when the time comes? So now he knows where to do it, but he just pops the car out so he catches a little bit extra air, slows the car down just a little bit so he doesn't actually make that pass attempt. So once again, here we are coming up. Looks like we're going to come around into turn number 4, which is the Atwood curve, long right-hander. Watch the way we have 2 different approaches through here. We've got Wistloff up front taking that tighter line, Addy taking the wider line, trying to get a little bit of extra speed as he comes out of the corner. But meanwhile, Scholl has decided to rejoin this party. Notice he's taking that later apex there in the hairpin. This is letting him kind of join back in. I think he may be trying to pull a little bit of what Addy was. So now that he's getting closer, we are on lap 19. There's not a lot of time left, and he's just looking to see what his opportunities are.
Pressure on Wistloff, caught a couple of the curbs earlier on. John Payne leads and starts the new lap to give him just 2 more to go. He's got a comfortable 3 seconds in his back pocket ahead of Roberto Catalano. Is that going to give him the opportunity to just cool off his tyres a little bit and go for an even faster lap of the race? Currently, Payne holds it 1/10 quicker than Roberto Catalano. It's been a back and forth consistently between those two. Sweeping through turn 2 goes Wislaw, Addy, and Scholl. Not quite as close as on the previous occasion. Look for Ragnar Wislaw to stay tight on the exit of turn 4. Russ Addy to run a little bit higher up. Doesn't seem to work well for Addy, and now I think he's going to be under pressure from Scholl. Scholl just 2 car lengths back as they come underneath the Lexus bridge. Before the kink to the left, Todd Scholl will close up even more. Look to the inside, but that's super late braking from Russ Addy. He pinches a brake, almost runs up the back of Ragnar Wislaw, but keeps the trio in the same order. Wislaw runs wide, heading down the hill, gets a bit of the curb on the way in, gets the car into a slide into the left-hander there, but catches it through the middle of the corner and has sustained so much pressure this whole race. They're about to start the final lap, or the final race of this opening round of 60-plus Racing Adventures Super Formula League.
Yeah, this race really heating up here. We see John Payne starting lap number 21. This is the final lap for our leader. Is he going to be able to put down a fast lap? Still sticking at a 120.178. He is just under a tenth faster than Roberto Catalano behind him. I think he wants that fast lap, though. I think he's going to need to really put it down this time. No playing around. Hit all those marks perfectly. Meanwhile, back in that battle for third, it's getting even closer. We've got right around 2 seconds. Russ Addy is running up on Wislaw. Can he make the pass this time around? They are really pushing hard, going up under the Lexus bridge into the braking zone. Now is the time to do it if you're going to make it happen. Is he going to be able to close it up? No, not quite. Looks like Wislaw is going to be able to hold on to that position. Russ is closing it up really tight under those braking conditions. As they run around, they got a little bit of lap traffic ahead of them. Are they going to be able to hold it out here, or are they going to get caught up by that lap traffic? Is that lap traffic going to give Wislaw the little bit of a draft he needs to hold on to this lead? But behind Addy, Scholl is really closing it up.
John Payne crossed the line to make it a clean sweep at Okayama. Roberto Catalano will join him on the podium. Ragnar Wislaw, so much pressure on him, and even just beginning to catch a little bit of lap traffic right at the end here. He'll hold on to that third. Russ Addy just ahead of Todd Scholl. Greg Garris on the road behind them, ahead of Mike McCormick, who spun out of contention in this podium battle. And you've got the 2 lap down cars there. JC Hay and Peter Holstrom crossing the line just 1 lap down, and between second and third on the racetrack. The rest of the drivers are going to come around and take the checkered flag for the final lap. And a bit of a drag race at the end there. Franz Josef Sturm just beats Bob Cohen on the way to the checkered flag. Behind them, Jack Turner and Barry Hills fighting it out for 10th and 11th. So much great racing out of 2 races for 60-plus Racing Adventures here at Okayama. John Payne, it's the best kind of sweep he could imagine. 2 fastest laps of the race, 2 race wins, an even bigger margin for him in race number 2. Ahead of Roberto Catalano, Ragnar Wislaw ahead of Russ Addy and Todd Scholl. Not a lot of passing happening, but super close and high tension, high stakes racing between them. The kind of pressure that caused Mike McCormick to crack in the end and drop behind Greg Garris in the battle for 6th and 7th. And then check out the lap times and the gaps and the margins. Franz Josef Sturm, a last lap pass on Bob Cohen for 8th as they were side by side taking the checkered flag, just ahead of Jack Turner and Barry Hills. Last car on the lead lap was Gerhardus Jorrison. JC Hay and Peter Holstrom just narrowly falling off the lead lap. They were just behind the leader. And then Jan-Erik Skrefsrud 5 laps down. Douglas Beasley parking it 11 laps down in race number 2.
That was quite a lot of action through that race. What a fantastic race for third. Out front, it was almost like they were just checking out, doing their own thing. Those 2 guys, just too much speed for anybody else to be able to get close to them. But boy, that race for third was quite a race.
Certainly was, and the driver that held on is going to join us, third place. Ragnar Wislaw. How are the hairs on the back of your neck?
Hi, David. Actually, quite flat and slightly moist, I would say. Well, more than just slightly moist. That was quite intense, actually.
So then, walk us through the whole round. What happened for race 1? How does that affect how you approached race 2?
Well, it was, I don't know, it was just lack of muscle memory and jumping into a session without enough practice. It's a track which is always slippery. I think we've spoken before about the volcanic rock at the Japanese tracks, and it makes it very, very slippery and slick. And then, on the first lap, it's too slippery, and you try to turn and you try to accelerate, and the car just don't want to do both. So you spin. That's it. And then I did it again. And unfortunately, I must apologize to Stumi. Sometimes I say thank you, Stumi. This time I say sorry, Stumi, because I took him out in a stupid move. The little instrument that tells you the what's it called, the
Relative box?
Relative, yeah. It showed nothing. So I thought I was alone. I thought I was the last car. So I just went onto the straight, and it turned out that Stubby was still behind me. That was stupid. Then, of course, I was a little bit more careful in race 2, so that's how it affected it. And you could see that. I think John was 12 seconds ahead, and I was content with staying where I was. And Russ and Todd and Mike, for a while, we had a very good race. That was excellent. Russ and I are on Discord, and we were talking, and it was quite good. We enjoyed that, both of us, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome to get into a new season and see such close racing. We're seeing again that sort of 1 second's not close enough for the slipstream. You've really got to get to half a second, 4/10, and you just didn't let those guys do it out of turn 4.
No, what is it called? Atwood. That turn, I think I had a little bit of an advantage over Russ in that corner, and also the one where I spun. It seemed to me that just about every lap, Russ slipped back a car length or two in that little section of left-hander, right-hander. And that gave me a little bit of a breathing space onto the long straights. But I think you need to be maybe closer than even half a second in order for the thing to work.
Because it seemed like there's not a particularly long tail to the slipstream, but it's very powerful once you do get close. And with the season ahead of us, that's something everyone's going to note. Like, for example, the season finale this season is at Monza. So that's still many, many weeks away. But how many races are we going to see you do between now and then?
Don't know. This is the last race I'll do before the vacation, so I'll be gone for 3 or 4 races. So we'll see. I think we saw today as well. The turnout wasn't all that good. It's the summer season, I think. So we'll see. But I'll race when I can. I don't know how much practice I'll get in, but it's good fun racing this car. It's a big challenge. It's not easy to drive. It's easy to drive, but it's not easy to drive fast.
Well, we wish you the best of luck with vacationing, racing, and your keen fascination with Japanese geology and rock formation.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just hope the volcano doesn't heat it from underneath. It felt like that sometimes.
Right, best of luck, happy sailing, stay safe.
Yeah, thank you, David.
I'm going to get to second place, Roberto Catalano. Roberto, 2 races, 2 second places. You're the only driver who seems like they can match John Payne, though.
Yes. I try to take him your preferred number 2, but it don't works. It's too fast to me the same.
And once again, all of your fans want to see you do well. They want to see you make many passes, like Gian Pietro again cheering for you.
Yes, I try them to write on YouTube, but they are my friends. Yes, I hope they are enjoyed the race.
I hope you enjoyed the race because you're going to be second in the championship. We've heard from John Payne and Ragnar that they might not be able to make every race this season, so this could be a wide open opportunity.
Yes. I try to follow John, and I create a gap with Ragnar. I don't expect this, but it's happened. John, it's too fast for me. It's too fast. I try to gain 210, 310, but lap before you retain this gain. I cannot short.
And next round and later in the season, we have some tracks I think you will like when we go to Monza and Mugello. Are you excited to race at home?
Yes, I love Mugello. Don't like much more Monza. I love Mugello. I think it's with Imola the best Italian tracks, and I am excited to compete in Mugello.
Well, best of luck there, and we'll see you again soon on RaceSpotTV. Grazie Roberto, and grande.
Grazie a voi, complimenti. Thank you.
And Michael Johnson's going to get to our two-time race winner, John Payne.
Hey there.
Indeed, I am. So, John, race 1, did you just intentionally start P7 so you could show off a little bit and then really show them what it's all about here in race 2?
No, I definitely didn't. That was just a blunder in qualifying, but I did a little better in this race. And I was talking to Roberto before y'all pulled him in, and that first lap, it's so critical to get out on those cold tires and try to gap people. And for me, I needed to gap him. And then once I got him, up to about 2 seconds, I wasn't slacking off, but I couldn't grow on him anymore. As the race goes on, he gets into his rhythm and pace. So if I'm going to beat him, I have to do it right at the beginning.
So did you find an easier time with lap traffic this time? Because there wasn't quite as much as last time. Last race, it seemed like about a third of the field was lapped. This time, only about 2 or 3 cars were lap traffic. Did that cause you any issues, or were you able to comfortably get around them?
When I was coming up on those guys, I was like, I think they're racing for position, which if it's me, I'm not, I would let a leader by, but I'm not going to go out of my way to do it and ruin up my positioning. But they both got out of the way, so they did me a solid there. But I was worried that they were racing each other and may not see me coming or know that I was coming, but they did, and they waved the flag and let me go on by.
Well, that was nice. It helped you be a 2-time winner here in the on the Okayama circuit. What do you think of Okayama? Do you think it speaks to you, or were you just yelling back at it, "No, I'm going to beat you and go faster"?
I was talking to Roberto. Roberto loves this track. I don't like it, but I should like it because I do think a track like this that's so technical with especially some high speed, that turn 2 complex, I mean, that's a high speed, and Roberto and I were both taking it in 5th, and it's so hairy at that corner. So this track has it's technical, and on a technical track, I do think I do better than on a draft track where, I used to let Greg Sainz just tow me around on those draft tracks because, you could. But someplace like this, if you're technical, you can get away from people, and that's what I try to do. So I don't love this track, but I think it does suit me.
Well, watching through the race, you were doing exactly what I would have coached someone to do, is ignore your mirrors. Well, not ignore, but you know what I mean. Ignore your mirrors. Just hit your point. Hit all your marks. Hit your brake point. Make sure you're dead on with that apex. You get your throttle point just right, and you track out using the entire track. I think we were on board with one of your laps in qualifying, and I just had to giggle the way you came around that last corner. You just caught the apex beautifully, and you used every little last bit of the green curving on the outside to put the hot lap down, and it was exactly what I would coach somebody to doing. So congratulations on doing so well.
Well, as I've said before, I think I learned so much of that from Greg Science. He is the master of taking what the track will give you. And so I certainly try to abuse track limits.
Indeed. If you got 17 points before DQ, use 16 of them if you can, right?
Exactly.
So any last words? Anybody you'd like to thank?
No, just thanks to the guys that put on the league, and it's a great place. I encourage anybody 60 plus to come join us, and there's always somebody for you to race at the mid pack, sharp end, back. I mean, there'll be somebody here that you can become a rival with.
Well, I think I'm still about 3 years away from being able to join you guys, but I can't wait for it, because you guys, it was some exciting racing. I look at my lap times, look at yours. I think we'd have a blast. So I can't wait until I hit that 60 point and I can come race with you.
Well, yeah, but the problem is I'll be 3 years older, so I'm the teenager in this group because I'm 60.
And you'll be slower at that point, right?
Yeah. So I'm not going to get
great.
faster.
Works out for me.
I guess so. Appreciate you guys.
All right, that was John Payne, our 2-time race winner here at Okayama Circuit. And with that, I'm going to hand it off back to David to take us out.
Yeah, 2 races of a very different character, but both of them won by John Payne, once from 7th on the grid, once from pole position. After the opening round of 60-plus racing adventures, he is your championship leader. They'll go on to Red Bull Ring, Silverstone Grand Prix, Portimao and Fuji, but we'll see you next for round 6, 23rd of July at Road America. That will be a more drafting and slightly less technical racetrack for 60-plus racing adventures Super Formula League. Pencil it into your diary. We can't wait to bring you more of this league. David Haynes with Michael Johnson as we sign off 60-plus from Okayama International Circuit.